So I think the disproportion between what people did and the government's measures are equivalent to the fear the government has.
Dear friends, welcome to another edition of Forum 2000 Online Chat. My name is Tania Bruguera, and I will be moderating today's interview with Cuban artist Tania Bruguera. Welcome, Tania.
Thank you for the invitation.
Tania Bruguera is a leading Cuban performance artist that uses politically motivated art to influence social and political processes. After recent protests, she was detained and taken to Villa Marista, a prison known for holding political prisoners, and interrogated by Cuban state security. So let me start with the first question, Tania. I would like to ask you, what has been the situation in Cuba since this year's July protests, that is, following the largest protest that took place in Cuba since 1990s?
Well, the demonstration on July 11 and 12 were unheard of, even for before the revolution, actually, because it started in a small town in the west of the country, and very, very quickly it became a national uprising. All the provinces, the whole island, all little towns start going out on the street. And that makes you wonder for how long people were waiting for this. How is it that a group of people in one small city transmit over the internet what they are doing in the park, and that sparks the whole island to go out and protest? That tells you that in a way this was the way in which people were able to say what they think about the current government. So we have seen this demonstration had given a lot of hope to a lot of people, because it was spontaneous, it was unorganized, it was completely popular. There was no leader. And this is one of the things the government is trying very hard to do. They're trying to find one or two leaders to blame for this so they can feel they have punished somebody. And because they haven't been able to do that, what they're doing is punishing the whole people. So what the government has done is, for the foreigners, they look like democratic. You have freedom of expression. You have freedom of demonstration, association. Everything is on the Constitution. As soon as you try to exercise your right, your constitutional right, they imprison you and they start punishing you. Because what they do at the inside of Cuba is to let clear for all the Cubans that you have no rights, that all of this is a theater for all the people to pretend that you are not a dictatorship, and therefore receive help and money from European Union, from the US, and from other countries. So this is the game that we are in this moment. What happened July 11 is the people tested that game and say, if we have the right, let's exercise it and see what happened. Well, what happened is the Cuban government detained more than 1,500 people, peaceful protesters, from which now we have around 850 still in prison. They detained minors. There was a group of a very intense group of minors who were detained. And also, after all the protests of the people who were not in prison for the liberation of people in prison, what they have decided is to do what is called juicios sumarios, which mean expedite judgment, where you don't have neither a lawyer or a judge. So it is being treated as a police matter instead of a law matter. So therefore, they have also judge people as groups. They take, 15 people all at the same time, and they're all condemned together. So this is also a violation. I mean, the amount of violation we have in this process after 11 July events are unheard of in Cuba. So this is something that that we have seen is, and this is based on a document by prisoner defenders that they did the research. The trials without lawyers are up to 85% of all the trials. We have a story of a friend of ours who is in prison. Her mom, his mom and brother went to see him in prison. And when they arrived, they were informed that the kid was not there. They say, where is it? It's in another place quite far, being judged. They run, they call a lawyer that some of us recommended to them, and they run, the lawyer run, the mother and the brother run. When they arrived to a place, he was already processed 2 years in prison for just being a peaceful protester. So I think the disproportion between what people did and the government's measures are equivalent to the fear the government has of its own people in Cuba at this moment.
Mm-hmm. To follow up on this topic, also on let's say the factor of fear, in your opinion, what were the main reasons that drew so many people to the streets, and why did Cuban people decide to protest this time, even though they have traditionally feared to criticize the government publicly? What were they protesting against?
It was a group of things. For many months, the people were witnessing. I mean, there was COVID, so everybody was on the internet, they were at home. So they were witnessing a group of artists who were protesting for their rights. And I think, in a way, some of the people were seeing new ways of protesting and saying, well, they did it, why we cannot do it? But the main reason, I think, is the fact that the Cuban government has demanded increasingly and very clearly sacrifices from the Cuban people without giving anything in exchange. So they kept doing sacrifice even more, at the point where people start dying because the COVID. And for example, I don't know if you know that Cuba did not accept to be part of the COVAX by the UN because they were so proud that they would do their own vaccine. And what has happened now is the vaccine, yes, they're producing the vaccine, but in the meantime, they're using people to try the vaccine because the vaccine is not yet approved. So they are using people for trying. Many of these people have been getting ill. And there is no condition in Cuba right now. The hospitals are completely, desbordados. They have too many people. There is not enough medical presence, while there are doctors in other countries, like Venezuela and other countries, that are being rented and paid. I see other governments pay the Cuban government for the service of the doctors. So what has happened is people start asking the government, bring those doctors back because we need them. People start asking, give open the possibility for Cubans outside of Cuba to send those medicine. There are a few group of activists in the United States and also in Spain, in Europe, that had provided more than 3 tons of medicine. And they're waiting to send it. They send it by knowing someone who, can you please bring this extra bag? We pay you the extra for the bag and you send it to Cuba. So a government that is not taking care of its people, but is demanding more and more sacrifice while you see how they live, because that's the other situation. Many people compared this time to the special period in the 90s, but in the 90s, nobody saw, maybe it happened, but nobody saw the nomenclatura, the people in the government living their amazing lives where they have no problem. They are super fat. They are super living an amazing bourgeois life with no precariousness, while the people, their houses are crumbling. There is no medicine. And there is not about, and I have to clarify, I'm against the blockade, but we have to be clear. The US government said they will authorize charters to go to Cuba to bring medicine. The Cuban government ignored this. So all the decision they are taking is about them, about their proudness, and not about the need of the people. So I think that was enough. That was the last drop, and
so
the people decided to...
Basically a detonator, what you are describing, this kind of the socioeconomic condition, the COVID pandemic. Do you see there was a significant role of social media in this?
Absolutely. I think this is the social media became almost like a school for people, because it has become a very important source of news, of real news, because the government is making fake news, defamation, and of course they are protected. I myself put a defamation case against the national TV newscast, and especially one of the people who speak there. And they came back, the response from the judge came back saying that they had the right of free press after defaming me and a group of activists. So defamation is okay when it's done. So what happened is that social media has become the main source. And the Cuban propaganda, which has become quite generic, I have to say, and unspecific, has been slowly being challenged by personal stories that carry the sense of truthness that we don't see in the news on TV. So, yes, the people started using social media as their platform to complain, to ask, to demand, but and also to see what activists were doing. They saw people doing protests. They said, okay, maybe we can do that. So it was a nice combination of strategies and truth, and how to put the truth out there in the open. So definitely it was very important. And this is why you have, after the July protest, the government has come up with another decree law, number 35 in this case, where they regulate the use of the internet. And this is not new. During the demonstration, we know, and we have documented, the case of parents with minors in jail, and also girlfriends and friends with people in jail, that has been threatened that if they don't take off the videos on the internet, if they don't take off their comments criticizing the government on the internet, their dear friends or family will not go out of jail. And we have this documented. This is not, this is documented. We have many, many cases where they say, if you want your loved one to go out, you have to take off your comments. You have to talk to your friends who put some comments. So basically, they have legalized a practice they have been doing for a long time. The interesting part is that in this decree, they talk about fake news, which I'm all for regulating fake news and taking down fake news. Agree on that. The part that is interesting with the Cuban law is that it's never applied to the people in government. The national newspaper from the Communist Party, the online magazine of the Ministry of Culture, the newscast website and Facebook page, they're all having fake news. They're all creating fake news about activists, about the situation, but they are not being punished. That law do not apply to them. For example, during the demonstration in July, they were peaceful. But there were some people who entered the stores. They were hungry because, of course, even when the protest was not talking about food, was talking about freedom. People asked for freedom, which was impressive. Some people enter a store, and we don't know if this is actually something done by the people or some infiltrated persons who created this aggression to change the image of the protest, because this happened many hours after the protest was already going on. And for example, those were the only images that were transmitted in the national TV. They did not put anything about a video that circulated on social media where you saw buses from tourism, like tourist buses, which is actually of the property of the government. This is not a private business. This is government business. Tourism is government business. So you saw all these tourist bus, and out of them you see going out people dressed in civilian clothes, but you could see they are not civilians, with sticks, with long sticks. They were going towards the protest. So, interesting enough, the sticks were all looking the same, which is something that I really caught my attention. When you saw the stick, it's not like you took a branch from the floor. They all look the same, and even like kind of polished, in the same size. So it was quite impressive to see that they look like arms, not sticks. So those images were not transmitted on TV, and they were censored on social media. The government is also denouncing activists to Facebook and to YouTube, so they closed their channels. This is impressive. I also want to say one thing. When we were talking about the law not applying to them, I want to make a specific comment, which is, at the moment we have hundreds of peaceful demonstrators in prison. We have none of the people who were aggressive to them, none of the people who beat them, none of the people who killed unarmed civilians, because there were several deaths coming out of this demonstration, and they were killed by those people dressed in civilian clothes, but they were part of the army and part of the Cuban government. Where is the justice where you only imprison one side and not the other side? So I would like to see the process and the trial for the people who beat unarmed people and the person who killed unarmed Cubans. And this is part of the rage that you still feel in Cuba. People know, like we always knew it was a dictatorship, but we have never thought such images will come out of Cuba, and such action, like shameless actions, will come out of the president. When he said the order of combat is given, he said on national TV, what he was really saying was not, let's come together and see what happens. Let's have a national dialogue, which is something we have been trying to promote, the activists. So what he basically say is, those people in civilian dress, clothes, who are part of the army, go and beat them. You will not have any consequences. There will not be any consequence to your actions. That's what that phrase meant. You can do what you want. We are not going to treat you for those actions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tania. Yes, thank you. It's nice to hear all this basically wrap up of what has been happening in Cuba in past months from all these different perspectives. And as far as I understand, the situation is still far from resolved. And so let's just hope that this was just the beginning of some kind of ongoing process of political transformation and civil society strengthening. So with this, I would like to thank you very much for the interview and for all your work.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you, and also say that it's very good to feel that now we are not minority anymore. The government is the minority.